the sweetest thing that I've ever seen. Still today I hope to see you running right back to me. It's the chorus to Right Back to Me, Running Back to Me, excuse me. It's the chorus to Running Back to Me, which is my latest single. It's a single that just released on all the streaming channels, and the second single on the album that's going to be coming out in April. And Running Back to Me is an old song. It's actually a song that I wrote back in 2008. It was about a relationship that I had back in Rochester that was a short. It was a short relationship. It was maybe a month and change, something like that. But it was impactful. It was before this particular relationship, I had been in a very significant relationship with someone on again, off again. I've talked about her before too, but I mean, wonderful woman. But we were, I mean, at the end of the day, we just kind of tortured each other, and so there was a lot of healing that needed to be done as a result of that, because we were so on again, off again, on again, off again. I love you, but I can't do this, or I need to do this, or that kind of a relationship. And there's a lot of healing that happens after that, and it takes a while. And this was this relationship that I was in just before I moved away from Rochester was the first relationship that I had been in since then that was any longer than a few dates, kind of a deal. And so it was significant. It was, and again, it wasn't long by any means, and we both kind of knew that it was going to come to an end, but because my plan, I had given up my apartment. I had moved in with my parents for a few months before I moved to San Diego. I mean, there was a plan in place, and I was very much intent on executing it. And so starting a relationship in that case was a bit of you never know when these things are going to happen, right? And so it just kind of did. But so again, we always kind of knew that it wasn't long. It wasn't going to be long term, but it was tough when it ended. And I remember, after towards the end, when we had the final conversation of like, okay, we're done with this for now. That I told her, I said, listen, I don't want this to end. I'm not gonna, I'll just be perfectly honest with you. She said, I need it to end. This has to be done. I said, okay. And so I left, and there's a verse, the second verse in that song is, I'll never forget the night I walked out your door, walking down the stairs. I had to look once more, because as I walked down the stairs to leave her apartment, she was standing at the door, and I thought I heard her say something, and I'll never forget, I kind of turned around and looked really quick because I thought I heard her say something, and I was like, huh? And she said nothing, and I said, oh, okay. And so I walked out and kept going down the stairs. But it's a very autobiographical line, obviously. But that was that relationship, and that was the kind of impetus for this, right? Because again, it's the kind of thing that sticks with you. I mean, never mind the fact that it was likely doomed from the start. Never mind the fact that it was something that was probably ill-advised to start in the first place. Never mind the fact that it was so short-lived. It was something that stuck with me for a while. And so so when I was doing, at this time, I moved to San Diego, and I did follow through with that. And then I got there and was networking, connecting with people, trying to get involved in the music scene, and decided that I was going to record a demo, and was going to go in for 10 songs with a guy that had a little home studio that was going to do the recording for me. And I realized that out of the 10 songs I was going to record, I only had 8 fully written. and the recording session was in like 3 days, 2 days, 3 days, something like that. And so I sat down and I said, "Oh boy, I better get this done." And so I sat down, and that's when I wrote the song "Better Days," and I wrote "Running Back to Me." And the song really came to me quickly. It was "Running Back to Me" was a song that came really fast. I probably wrote it in about an hour, and then kind of played around. When I first wrote it, though, it was very much kind of a Van Morrison style song, and so guitar wise anyway, right? I mean, so musically speaking, it had this kind of feel, and I don't even remember what it sounded like before, to be honest. But I recorded the scratch demo, and I played it for a friend of mine, and she said it's a beautiful song, it's a great song, but it needs more soul. There's not enough of you in it. And so I said, "That's interesting." And of course, I think it's great. And like my first reaction was not exactly, flattered, but by any means. But I sat with it for a little bit, and I said, "Okay, well, what happens?" The one thing that I remember was that I played it with no capo, and so it was in the same key, but it was down here, and so it had this. It was. Somewhere down here. I don't remember. Again, I don't remember what it was, but it had obviously a very different vibe to it. And so I said, well, what happens if I slap a capo on it and just try and play different chords, different chord patterns, different chord shapes to it? And that's when I came up with this chord shape of the. Right, that same chord progression that repeats through the whole song, basically loops through the entire song, which is not something that I typically do. I don't often do the one chord progression that just goes throughout, but I felt like this one fit for some reason. And then I really slowed it down, brought it down probably about 20-30 beats per minute, and that's what you hear today, right? That's what you just heard. That's what you hear on the recorded version of it. But I was really happy with the way that it came out. And then when I played it for my friend Dee again, she listened to it. She goes, "Oh well, that's some more soul." And I was like, "That's what I was looking for," right? And so I got the reaction that I was looking for from the person that had a critique that ended up being incredibly constructive for it. But as I went through and produced it, I let the song sit for a while, because I wasn't a huge fan of all the lyrics. And then finally, over the past couple of years, I picked it up again and I rewrote some of the lyrics. And I decided that I was much bigger fan of it now. I liked the lyrics a lot better, and I wanted it to be out there. I wanted to get out in the world. And so when it didn't make the cut for Stories from an Old Set of Strings when I recorded that. It didn't fit into the overall story that I was trying to tell with that album. And so I said, well, when I do the next record, that's when I'll do it. And I'm glad that I waited, because it turned out to be a much more interesting production process. And I'm not going to dive too deep into the production of it all, but one of the things what I love about it is that it gave me the opportunity to dabble in everything from the kind of just the guitar part where it starts, and then it kind of builds with an upright bass, and it builds in with some organ and piano, and then builds in with some strings and some cello, with a cello part in it, and finally I got to actually record a guitar solo on it, which was really cool, because I haven't gotten a chance to before this. I haven't really had the chance to do a lot of guitar solo stuff, because I haven't done a lot of full band productions where I built the full band from the ground up from the get-go, right? I mean, I re-released a lot of songs with full band productions, but they weren't made in mind with full band in mind. These are this album was made with a full band in mind, so I got to do a lot more with it, which was kind of cool. And so I actually I have a classical guitar that I pulled out and used that as the instrument to play the guitar solo on. And I used a pick on the nylon strings of the classical guitar, which isn't something that I would normally do, but I thought that the sound and the way that the pluck of the strings from that guitar pick that I used, which is a thumb pick, and so it was a little bit sturdier and a little bit more connected to my hand, felt like it just really delivered a lot of character to that solo. And so that was a lot of fun for me as well. But overall, I had this concept in mind as I was producing it. I'm like, oh, this could be like, I could bring a whole string section in on this. And then as I started thinking about it, I started thinking back to a letter that I saw that Paul McCartney had written to Phil Spector after he got his hands on Let It Be. And Phil Spector is obviously known for doing big productions, and with really lush instrumentation, and he's got this whole he was the one that developed the whole wall of sound thing and whatnot. Whereas I remember Paul McCartney wrote this letter saying, basically, never touch another one of my songs again, because I hate what you did to Let It Be, what have you. Of course, I'm paraphrasing, but as I started thinking about that, I'm like, okay, maybe let's dial it back and let's find a kind of halfway point. And so I thought that, the bass, the cello, the organ, the piano, kind of still gave it a lot of kind of lush feel to it, but didn't go overboard. Overall, I'm really happy with the way that the song came out on the recording. So definitely go check that out. It's available on all the streaming channels, on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, name it, it's out there. Pandora, what have you. And so definitely check it out. Would love to hear your thoughts, and would love to if you like this, obviously do the whole like, comment, subscribe, all the things, because that way you get to see what I'm doing. You get to kind of get caught up and stay caught up on what's happening. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the song, and I look forward to seeing you again the next time around. Cheers.